My stepmom constantly shares the story of how my father saved her while being married to my mother, so I laughed when she was brutally shamed in the conversation. 2 years ago, my father left my mother to go with his mistress, whom I will call Anna. My mother never had any idea about the infidelity. Anna knew that my father was married, and she even went to the house with him to take his things. One day, he simply told my mother that he was no longer in love with her and wanted to be happy with Anna. I was there when everything happened. Anna was depressed. She has many scars on her legs and arms. I don't go to my father's house. For obvious reasons, it makes me uncomfortable to be around them. Anna is overly nice, and it's really uncomfortable. A few days ago, it was my grandfather's birthday, and the whole family was together, including Anna. I have an aunt who suffers from depression and other heavy things like schizophrenia. She has tried to hurt herself many times. At one point in the night, only my father, my aunt, Anna, another aunt, and I were in the living room. For some reason, my aunt and Anna talked about some serious things. At one point, Anna began to say that depression made her do many things trying to feel fulfilled, that she could only overcome depression when she met my father. He saved her, and meeting him was the key to overcoming her depression, and now she's finally happy thanks to him. I know about that because Anna often tried to bond with me by telling me how much she suffered in her life and how my father saved her. She had always justified herself that she was depressed and was in a hard place in her life before my father saved her. It always makes me feel uncomfortable, and I don't feel empathy for her no matter how sweet she is. Talking about how many times you try to unalive yourself in front of my 8-year-old sisters is not something normal. Anna has always tried to paint her relationship with my father as a fairy tale that began differently but that she doesn't regret anything because her world is perfect now. At that moment my aunt said something like, I tried to save myself by going to a psychologist, not by jumping on the PP of a married man, and then she began to say that depression made her want to jump off a bridge but not ruin a family. I just laughed. It was funny. My aunt may have her mind elsewhere all day, but it was crazy to see her make such a sly comment. But when my father was taking me home, Anna was crying, and he scolded me for laughing at what my aunt said, saying that no one knows everything that Anna suffered. I didn't apologize, but now I think, was I wrong to laugh? From my point of view, my aunt was right. Update: my aunt came home and told my mom what had happened. My sister is an 8-year-old girl, and she hates Anna. Anna once tried to get along with my sister and told her about the time she wanted to commit suicide and how my dad saved her. After that, my sister came home asking my mother if she had ever thought about committing suicide. That's not a question an 8-year-old girl should ask. And my sister even asked me questions about suicide after that. I don't really know what else exactly Anna said to her, but it affected her as a little girl. It's not even something you should talk about with a girl of that age. My mother was furious, and since that day she forbids my father to have my younger sister near Anna as she considers her a dangerous and unstable person around children. Since that day, things have been really tense between my father and my mother. My little sister doesn't want to visit our father, so she is fine with this. My aunt told my mother that Anna talked about it again, but this time in front of me. Apparently my father and Anna were totally forbidden to talk about these things in front of me too. I'm not a little kid, but apparently, that was the arrangement my mother made with my father when she set boundaries for them. My aunt told her what happened that day, and I confessed to my mother that Anna and my father talk a lot about those suicide attempts in front of me, which is something I should have talked about before, but at that moment, I didn't want problems and decided just to ignore them. I told my mom that for that reason, I was not going to my father's house anymore, and my mother got very upset with him. The next day, she went to talk to my father. I don't know what they talked about. She just came back saying that Anna can't get close to us anymore. She told me that she can't forbid me from being near my father, and that's my decision, but Anna is extremely forbidden to set foot in the same place where I and my sister are. My paternal grandparents agreed, and my aunts too. They knew about the situation with my younger sister. I haven't spoken to my father, but my cousin told me that my father argued with my grandfather. He often says that Anna is a good person and we don't understand the pain she suffered, so I guess he's upset with all of us now for our great lack of empathy, as he always says. I don't know. At least now I won't see them for a while. My boyfriend's sister dumped her children with me because she wanted to party with her friend for 4 days, so I called the cops and ended her with a felony charge. My boyfriend and I have been together for 5 years. His sister, Claire, has a 1-year-old baby, Alex. Claire is a single mom and sometimes drops her baby off at our place when she has some errands to run. I will be honest here. I have no clue how to take care of a baby. I play with the baby, but other than that my boyfriend usually takes care of Alex. My boyfriend's work is on-site, so he usually isn't home for 4 days and then comes home for 3 days. One day, Claire asked my boyfriend if she could drop off Alex for the day. Boyfriend was supposed to leave for work that evening. Since she had said that she would pick up the baby by evening, he didn't mention that. Big mistake. He left around 5 p.m. I was waiting for Claire and kept calling her. She picked up the phone around 8 p.m. and told me that she had gone to a place a few hours away with her friends. She told me to tell my boyfriend to take care of Alex for the next 3 to 4 days. I told her that my boyfriend already left for work. Then she just told me, then you take care of Alex. I will be back in 4 days. And then she hung up on me and switched off her phone. I freaked out hard. I cannot call my boyfriend because he is unreachable on site. Neither of us has family in the state that we could have called. I called a few friends but no one gave me anything helpful. The bag she gave Alex only had diapers left in it. The baby was crying her head off and I didn't even know what to feed her safely. I literally didn't know what else to do. So, I called the police and told them what happened. They directed me to a social worker. While the social worker was helping me take care of the baby, the cops called the cops where she was to locate her. The cops found her high marijuana and she had enough on her for them to classify it as possession and intention to sell. Edit. I don't think she actually sold anything. She probably just brought enough for her and her friends for the next few days. She didn't get any jail time. She had to do community service and plead guilty. Unfortunately, that also meant she got a felony conviction. This got her fired and she hasn't been able to hold on to a good job since. In my defense, I only wanted her to come back because I didn't want anything to happen to Alex because I was not capable of taking care of her. I did not think she was doing anything that would get her arrested. In her defense, she has left Alex at our home plenty of times, so it's not unreasonable for her to think that I would have no problem taking care of Alex for a few days. Also, this was probably the first time she took a break for herself since Alex was born. My boyfriend was pissed in the beginning but came around later. Their parents also think I wasn't in the wrong. She obviously hates me and thinks I ruined her life because she wanted a break for a few days. I found out that my husband and our babysitter are in constant contact and having sleepovers. Now he's trembling with fear because I am getting rid of him. My husband, 39, and I have been together for 12 years and married for nearly 7. We have 2 children together. We have a really good life, and my husband is great in every way. He is extremely kind and good to me. He is an even better father. He has never called me a name or raised his voice. Within the last few months, I started noticing somewhat odd interactions between him and our longtime babysitter, 20. My gut told me something was off, and it's never steered me wrong. For some background, I have known our sitter since I was a teen and she was a child as she was my next-door neighbor, and her parents are still neighbors with my parents. Our sitter attends college in a neighboring state. My family and children are extremely close with the sitter and her family. My kids love her and she loves them. She accompanies us to community activities and also spends time with us at our home whenever she is home from school, summer, holidays, long weekends. Now, on to the red flags. I knew my husband and our sitter texted occasionally and didn't mind because I thought it was infrequent and assumed it was always the sitter initiating the messages. She also occasionally texts me and also texts my husband and me in a 3-way message. My family and I have long suspected she has a crush on my husband. However, that doesn't bother me as I trust him. I'm confident, and my sitter is young and immature. Also, not to be rude, but as far as your stereotypical beauty standards go, I am far more attractive than she is. A few months ago I started noticing that she knew things that had happened within my family, such as spats between my sisters, etc. I asked her how she knew about them, and she responded that my husband was texting her when it happened. I found that to be really strange and somewhat inappropriate. Next, there were 2 nights recently when she spent the night to spend time with the kids while I was working overnight. I learned afterward that they stayed up watching movies together into the night after putting our kids to sleep. Maybe not so strange? My husband never initiates hanging out with me after the kids go to bed. We usually sleep separately, each with one of our kids, because they love co-sleeping. We are aware we need to break that habit, so I'm immediately hurt that he is staying up late and watching movies with our sitter, and doesn't do the same with me, and also find it really strange and inappropriate. Last Sunday, my son was watching Netflix on my husband's phone and I saw a message come in from the sitter. I take the phone and tap on it. Prior to this I had never ever looked, or wanted to look, through anyone's phone other than my own, but my gut had been telling me that something was up, so I looked. I scrolled back a ways and saw that they were texting a lot, sometimes about the kids, but usually not. It was consistent messaging on almost a daily basis, if not daily. They both initiated conversations with varying topics. He texts her more frequently than he does me, say when I'm gone 9 to 36 hours a day at work. I found this constant communication to be super concerning and not okay for a married man to be engaging with a 20-year-old female, 20 years his junior. Never mind the power imbalance at play in a situation like this, given the age gap and the fact that we regularly employ her and supplement her income. I confronted him immediately, and his excuse was she is family, she is my friend, I thought you text her all the time, but nothing has happened. Nope, I didn't accept his dumb-ass response. I asked him if one of his married friends were to be interacting with their babysitter like this if he thought it was okay. He said no. I asked if he thought their wives would be okay, and he said no. I let him know that I wanted to separate and live separately. He, of course, did not want this. Part of me thinks financials play a role as I make 3x what he makes, and he could not live in this expensive city without my income. Tough. I haven't spoken to him in 3 days and have made it a point to be working or at my mom's with the kids so I don't have to see him. He has been messaging me, but I've barely responded. I would love and really appreciate some outside perspective. Am I the a-hole? Am I overreacting? My mother-in-law is insinuating that my daughter isn't my husband's because there's no way her son's child could be that color, but she immediately wailed when I smacked her face. For context, my husband is white, and I am mixed. My mom is Puerto Rican, and my dad is white. My mom has very dark skin, and my dad is pretty fair. I'm pretty white passing, which, for those who don't know, means you can't tell that I am Latina unless I tell you. A running family joke is that melanin skips a generation because my maternal grandpa is also very fair but my maternal great-grandma is very brown. With that out of the way, I'll get into my situation. I have been with my husband for 7 years, and married for 5. We have a 3-year-old little girl who is the light of my life. When she was born, she had a head full of dark brown curls, dark brown eyes, and a fairly olive complexion. She looks like me when I get tan. You can tell she's part Latino despite knowing all this. My mother-in-law has gotten it into her head that my daughter isn't my husband. She's been telling anyone who will listen that I must have had an affair because there's no way her son's child could be that color. Yeah. How nice. My mother-in-law has always been standoffish with me. She never made a big effort to get to know me and was always more polite than anything else. Mother-in-law has made some offhanded comments before about Latinos, but their husband would brush them off because she's from another time. I wanted to write off her behavior as just her not being educated enough. I realize now that was my mistake because it gave her the okay to keep going. When my husband and I heard from sister-in-law that mother-in-law was saying this, we invited her over to talk about this. I was really hoping we'd be able to fix this. However, what happened was my mother-in-law going on a rant for like 15 minutes. It consisted of her outing herself as a racist, saying she knew girls like me couldn't control themselves, that she knew from the start what would happen. The nerve I had to pass my daughter off as her, also some very colorful slurs. My husband and I were frozen in shock because she hadn't even stepped into the house and was just screeching on our doorstep. What snapped me out of it was when she started to insult my mom, saying she probably did the same to my dad. I don't know what came over me next. I've never hit someone before, but I ended up smacking her so hard that her glasses fell off. That's what got my husband to start talking, or rather yelling at his mother and me for acting this way while mother-in-law started to wail. Yes, I shouldn't have hit her, I know. That's wrong. But hearing him imply I was in the wrong the same way mother-in-law was made me more angry. I told him he was just as much a racist as his mom if he was trying to make me out to be as bad as her. I got my keys from inside the house while he was trying to calm his mom down and left. I drove to a hotel and spent the night there. Now it's the afternoon and I haven't left the hotel room since checking in. My husband and several other friends and family have been trying to reach me. I only replied to my sister-in-law to tell her I was safe at a hotel and asked her to not tell my husband what hotel I was at. Guilt is starting to sink in, and I question everything. Update. I spent quite a bit reflecting and got an emergency meeting with my therapist this morning. We got home around 7 after we had dinner. My husband was waiting and I told him we'd talk after kiddo went to bed. When she was for certain asleep, we sat and had a long conversation not just about the fight and his mother, but also race and culture. I saw how my family was treated based on skin color, and while my husband understands racism, he admitted to never really grasping the complexities, especially colorism. He apologized to me for not standing up for me before and then acknowledged he didn't want to think of his mother in a racist light. I also apologized for hitting her because, in the end, no, it didn't help us. He did forgive me and said if it wasn't his mom saying it, he'd probably slap them too. We will be going to a marriage counselor, we decided, hoping to find one that specializes in interracial marriage. Our daughter is going to face challenges in the future because of her race. It's sad to say, but unfortunately, racism is still alive, and we want to know how to protect her and uplift her so she does not feel ashamed of her heritage. We've decided to go NC with her and any people who try to bridge communication between us and her. She will have no contact with my daughter unless it's years down the road and she shows significant changes in her behavior. My husband will drive to her house tomorrow to inform her of our decision. I'd consider a paternity test and DNA test, but only if mother-in-law pays. I don't want to entertain this on my own dime. We've also decided not to make any public post regarding this. If people want to believe her story, that is on them, not us. My husband knows our baby is his. The irony is that she looks more like him than me. Her curls are even from him. I am sad my daughter won't have a grandmother in the States, but it's more reason for us to plan trips to PR.